Hello, Chicago. I got to be totally serious with you guys today because this is a very serious show. Ziff Sistrunk here today. We got a very important announcement to make, but we want to keep with tradition and what we've always done. We always start our show off with a moment of silence for those who have lost their lives to violence here in the city and in the county and in the state. And then we have a very special show and we have a very special announcement to make. Let's take that moment of silence, please, for those who have lost their lives, and especially Mr. Maurice Ganton Jr. Let's have a moment of silence, please. We thank you. Let me start off with, maybe I'll let you see it and we'll read it together. How's that? Overhead. Okay, let's see what it says, Ziff. Let's turn it around, Ziff. And let's read it together. Okay? See if we can go in one more time. Let's go to 3. Okay, there it is. Announcement, Wednesday, yesterday, location Can TV, my mayor, Chicago. Let's just do it, Ziff. I want to make an announcement today in what has been long coming, but yet many people have wanted the opportunity to do this, and I'm very serious about it, and I'll tell you why I'm serious about it. And let's just get into it. I lost my notes. I want to do something that first of all, I should say hello, and my name is Ziff Sistrunk, and I'm the executive director of Greenslate Institute for Justice. And what we do at Greenslate, we monitor courtrooms where there's injustice and wrongful convictions. Today I want to do something different that probably a person in my position has never done before. I'm an ex-felon, for those of you who may not know it, or may want to know it, or don't care to know it. And in this country, the only thing an ex-felon can get is his old jail cell back. But we're going to change that. Today, here at Can TV and in the city of Chicago and Cook County, I am here to, and I don't know if I'm violating the rules of Can TV. If that be the case, then this will probably be my last show. But I intend to run for mayor of the city of Chicago here in the state of Illinois. And I intend to run for 3 reasons. And I was beginning to tell you that in this city and in this country, ex-felons, I call them ex-convicts, the only thing we can get is our old jail cell back. But that's going to change. Ex-felons in this city, in this county, and in this state, we can vote, and that's a plus. We do not have an American Express card. We do not have a Discovery card. But we do have a voter registration card, and we intend to use it. I want to spend about 7-8 minutes telling you who I am. And then I want to spend, because some of you really do not know who I am. You've probably just seen me on TV. Recently, you've probably seen me on TV in the Maurice Ganton case, Jr., where a policeman shot this young man one time in the spine and killed him on 47th Street. We was able to raise $15,000 from J.B. Pritzker to help the family, Spencer Leak, Leon Finney, and Chris Harris, Obedelli, Pat Dow, and Billy Goats, Samsionis, and we thank them for helping put that young man in the grave. I want to spend 10 minutes telling you all who I am, and then I'm going to spend 10 minutes telling you all my idea for Chicago. And then if there's some calls, we'll take some calls. But to be honest with you today, I'm not really interested in many phone calls because I can easily fill these 30 minutes telling you who I am. I was born in Chicago, Illinois in 1956. Eisenhower was the president. Mayor Daley had just taken over as the mayor from Hamburg. There was a gang in Bridgeport, and the mayor with Bill Dawson, and the gentleman who owned the Chicago Defender was able to put him in place. I grew up on 43rd and I grew up on 31st in Indiana. The first 10 years of my life was on 31st in Indiana. Very smooth life somewhat, my first 11 years on this earth. My mom, she was a stay-at-home mom, and I was from a very large family. I don't know if I've ever told you all that I am the last of 18 children. My mother had 3 sets of twins. I'm a twin myself. Irene, we call her Missy, is my twin sister. Katie and Charles was another set of twins she had, and Lois and Lola. Katie's twin, Charles, was killed in 1972. I was a bat boy for the Chicago White Sox. And Charles was killed on 43rd. I was a bat boy, and they told me to come off the field. And I went home, and my brother had died, got killed. This was before all the mass killing that took place. And then the next year, I was a bat boy for the White Sox in 73 and 4. I was a student at King High School at the time, a freshman, sophomore. And my other brother, Sammy, was killed on 43rd. And then, just to fast forward a little bit for you, my sister, Gail Sistrunk, God rest her soul, my sister Gail died in the 51st Street police station. And then we went and told my other sister, Ivelta. Was it Ivelta? And she died right at that moment. So we buried 2 of our kin people. Now, why did I tell you all about the sad part of my life at the beginning? Because that has promulgated everything I've done for the last 50 years. I've been in the community for 50 years, since I was 11 years old. The wall of respect and the wall of respect and the wall of truth. Now let me go back to 31st in Indiana. We moved to from 31st in Indiana right after the big snow in 1967. I'll never forget it. We moved to 43rd in Langley. And I'll be totally honest with you. That was not a happy time for me. And a lot of my friends on 43rd Street will probably be a little sad to hear that 43rd Street to me was not a happy time. But so many things was involving in my life from 43rd Street. Example, the wall of respect. I was able to be the first outdoor tour guide. I met Muhammad Ali, Harry Belafonte, and guess what? My first time on television was at the Wall of Respect. I was interviewed by a gentleman named, he was Jim Tillman. In the 60s, the station started hiring African American males and females because there was none on the air. Jim Tillman was with Channel 11, and he came down to the Wall of Respect and the Wall of Truth, and he interviewed me. That was my first time on television. And who would believe for the next 51 years, I would either be on television, I would either be in radio, or I would either be on the newspaper for 51 years. Then with the Wall of Respect, I learned how to play strikeout because I was not able, because of the Blackstone Rangers on Cottage Grove and the Disciples on King Drive, I was never able to leave my neighborhood, 43rd and Langley, but the world came to my neighborhood in the form of the Wall of Respect and the Wall of Truth. Then in 1971, I entered Martin Luther King High School, and that's when things began to feel good about 43rd and Langley, because when I had to go to school, I had to pass the warlords, Owl Dog, and the Killers. But I made it to King High School every day. I had an extraordinary attendance record because I was the broadcaster and the announcer at Martin Luther King High School. I was the football guy who put the stakes down. My producer, Richard Agent, would know about that. He works over at King High School. And I was a baseball player. I never played baseball in my life. We never had Little League. I never played Little League. I never played 13, 14s. I only played when I went to high school in 1971. Now, I was the announcer. I was a talent show guy. We had 500-600 people every talent show that I did. So I was enjoying high school. Then just as I was getting ready to graduate, I started getting stupid, ignorant, and I ended up in prison. Would you believe that? Me and some of my friends would hang around, and we would be smoking weed, and we would be drinking, and then we decided to go out and rob the CTA. So we would get on the L's, you know how the doors open? It would be four of us, and we would have this big laundry bag or shopping bag, and we had guns. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I went away 2 years, 6 months for armed robbery. And when we would get on the L's, and we would tell you, we only wanted your wallet, your rings, and your money. We weren't interested in, this is only a robbery, don't make it a murder. I'm going to be totally honest with you because it's important that I do. And so, judge sent me away for 2 years and 6 months. Needless to say that my mom was devastated, and the White Sox were devastated because the White Sox had secured me a scholarship to Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina for baseball and broadcasting. I would have been, still have the potential to be the Black Harry Carey and the Black Howard Cosell. But I went away to prison, Pontiac Correctional Center, Pontiac prisoner 620456. Ziff Sistrunk, the famous bat boy, the talk show host, the wall of respect guy, was now in prison. Oh my God. When I was in prison, wow, it wasn't easy. The good thing for me is that I carried the entertainment, the baseball to prison with me, and I was a baseball coach. I'll tell you a story about Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover, the guy that so many young people admire, the street gang leader, he was walking what we call the yard, and one of my baseball players had hit a ball near where Mr. Hoover and about 10 or 15 of his, I'll keep it real, his bodyguards were. And Mr. Hoover, the ball was hit to him, and Mr. Hoover did something like this. He said, how he scooped the ball up, and I ran over there and I said, "Hey, you, come here." I'm talking to Larry Hoover now, but I didn't know who it was. The guy was artistic when it comes to baseball, and a friend of mine said, "No, Ziff, don't do that. Don't go over there." I said, "Man, get out of here. That guy is good." And then when I got a little closer, one of the guys who knew me, he said, "No, you don't want to mess with him. Just leave him alone. You don't want him on your team." But it's unbelievable how I met Larry Hoover. Then a couple of months before I got ready to come home in Pontiac Correctional Center, there was a riot. I'll never forget. I was upstairs working the projection, the old projection rooms that they had, and 3 guards were killed in Pontiac Correctional Center, and over 20 inmates were injured. I had 3 months to go, and needless to say, I was scared to death, to say the least. So, of course, there was a big trial afterwards. I was not on trial. The White Sox had secured me a hearing with the board. Bill Veck, who helped get me out of prison. As soon as I came up to the board, they gave me my release, and I came home. I'll never forget the first day I came home. That's another thing with prisoners, and which is a good thing and a bad thing. They always have to return to the same neighborhood in which they came from. I think that's a bad idea. I think we should start somehow, and a lot of them don't have places they can go. But I came back to 43rd and Langley, and I'll never forget, looking for things that I had done in the past and hoping that that was something that I could attach to. But one thing I wanted to do when I was in prison in Pontiac, I always read books, and I worked as a librarian in the prison library. Because the reason I did it, because my friends from King High School was going to college, and I knew when I came home I wanted to be on the same pace with them, even though I was in what we call the black man college prison, and they were in what we call the white man college, the real college, university. So I think I did pretty good. So the night that those guards were killed, I'll never forget, there was a guard killed right in my face, and I said, I literally fell out. I fainted. They stabbed that guard over 40 times. The one guard. God rest his soul, and those other guards too, and the men who were injured. But the trial went on for 17 years. About 10 to 15 years that trial went. And nobody was convicted for those men's death. So I came home to Pontiac, and here Ziff go. He had to have a living, he had to make a living, he had to do something for a living. So what did I do? I did the same thing that I was famous for. I started working with young people, and I started doing entertainment with young people, and I started what they call in the city of Chicago, I want to turn this phone off because I know I should have done it before. I started breakdancing with young people in the city of Chicago. And Channel 11, those of you who can research it, Channel 11 did a special on me called Streetwise. We were breakdancing. We went all over the city. I had all of the dancers from all over the city, Cabrini Greens, Argyle Garden, Wentworth Garden, and we was performing at almost every school. We did 2 shows, Oprah Winfrey show with Harry Belafonte. He had this movie out called Beat Street, so I took my group, Venus, and the Boogie Boys, and then we went on Oprah Winfrey show with Curtis Blow. I think that was Flip. We went on Harry Belafonte with Oprah Winfrey and my boys, and we went on Curtis Blow, Phil Donahue with Curtis Blow. So I pressed forward, then I started getting involved in politics, and then I started getting in baseball in Washington Park. That's where I met Kirby Puckett. And we became friends, and I began to keep his legacy going when he died. Now, let me talk the next 10 minutes on how and what. I told you all right now, I'm the executive director for Greenslate Institute for Justice, and I'm here at CAN TV, Learning Television. Now, let me talk about some different subjects as to, and sort of convince you that I would be the proper person, that you would give the opportunity to be the mayor of the city of Chicago, and to let you know that I'm very serious about what I'm doing. First of all, out of all the candidates that are running, there is no candidate that can stand before you and tell you that they have worked on your behalf for 51 years and have not received a salary, have not received any money from any major agency, and have given the opportunities to over 5,000 to 7,000 people, not just young people. So we're proud of that. So what we have done is we've had a track record in the community of serving, giving what we had, using the talent that God gave us, and more importantly, giving something back. Now there's 4 or 5 issues that I think is very important. Keep in mind, here in Illinois, ex-offenders can vote. But there's a little problem that I will come across as I get my petitions. I'm going to have to gather over 10,000 petitions, registered voters. And then when you have to get 10,000 signatures, you probably want to get 2 or 3 times that many, because everybody who signs your petition, if they have not corrected their name, if they moved and didn't correct it, they're not registered. So we'll run into a lot of that. And then we'll run into the corrupt Democratic Party here in Cook County and some elected officials that are corrupt, and I will not say their names, and I do not mean any particular person. I'm just talking about the Democratic Party on its face and as a whole, because I am restricted from mentioning individuals' names. I cannot. I was taken abreast, and let me go back to what I was saying, because I'm very serious about that. Those of you who know, I just can't talk about certain things. I have to stop right now and go back to what I was saying. Again, there's some problems that I see here in the city of Chicago that have to be addressed as the mayor. And one of them is the pension. There's no way we're going to be able to survive. Let me show you an example of bad government. Let's take Roland Burris, for instance. Roland Burris have 5 pensions. He was the recorder, the state's recorder. He was the attorney general. He was the senator. And Roland held 2 other positions. That's 6 pensions for Roland Burris. Any individual, first of all, we are not putting money into the pension. So there's no way we're going to be able to sustain the pension monies that we are obligated, and that we've made a commitment to teachers and firemen and other agencies, people who have worked in other agencies. So the biggest challenge that we're going to face here as the mayor of the city of Chicago is how do we handle the problems that we face with our pension. The second crisis that I'm very interested in is the Chicago public school scandal. That is unbelievable what has happened to our children. I intend to be very vocal about that situation that has evolved. I intend to follow up with it, and I think some people should go to jail, just as the Catholic priests went to jail for that. The magnitude, and when I tell you I know, I can tell you personally that I know that this is happening in the Chicago public schools, and it has been happening since I was in school back in the 70s. So we're going to watch that issue. It is a very serious issue because that deals with the moral fabric of the city of Chicago. And if you have scandals such as that, no city can survive. Taxes. That's going to be one of the major issues that I want to look at as a candidate for mayor of the city of Chicago, because what is happening is we have certain obligations that we have to make as a municipality here in the city of Chicago. And if the revenue is not coming in, then there's no way we can pay our bills. Chicago, I think, if I haven't looked at the numbers, we're going to be getting together with one of the universities. I'm very serious about this, but I'm going to tell you all, I'm going to be honest with you all, because I've never lied to you before, and I'm not going to start lying now. Let's look at the situation where they say, Ziff, the rules say ex-felons cannot run in the city of Chicago. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to go to the state legislation, and we're going to have to change that. Because ex-offenders, you take me for an example, we have contributions that we can make to society. Can you imagine every year 27,000 people go into Pontiac, Sheridan, the correctional office, the correctional prisons here in the state of Illinois, and 27,000 come home every year. That is a tremendous number of people coming in and coming out. And believe it or not, there needs to be opportunities for those men and those women of all races and creeds. So as the mayor of the city of Chicago, one of the main things I'm going to be interested in is how your tax dollars are being spent. What can we do to preserve the monies that we have coming in and to use it properly? One thing I'm very interested in is the red lights. That is a big burden on the regular average person that only makes a certain amount of money. So that goes back to what we were talking about before. And I had brought this idea out a few months ago, that if you have a ticket or if you have a debt that is owed to the city of Chicago, whether it be property tax debt or whether it be a debt that you've incurred for whatever a police officer or whomever have given you a tickets for your sidewalk, your grass not being cut, I think you should be able to do community service. And what that does for the city of Chicago, it gives us a large workforce. Now, another thing too that I may not be favored for is city employees. Chicago have over 50,000 city employees, 43,000 with the Chicago Public Schools alone. We're going to look at each department here in the city of Chicago, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut those jobs in half. If you've been working for the city for over 10, 15, 20 years, then your mortgage should be paid. And you should have sent your kids to school. And I think you should go out and get you some training. I know this may sound cold, this might sound cold-blooded, but we're going to cut the workforce of the city of Chicago in half. And the reason we're doing that is because I think people like Richard Agee and other people that I know, and not just my friends, I think they should be given opportunities to be a city worker too. So those of you who have been a city worker for over 15 and 20 years, my advice to you, once I become mayor, you need to start looking for a job somewhere else. I hate to say it like that, but I think the job of a city worker everybody should have that opportunity. And if you're going to be there for 30 or 40 years, then that means the kid that's coming out of college won't get that opportunity. I know that's somewhat controversial, but that's one of my planks in my platform. This is Ziff Sistrunk as we wrap this up. And also, I've been one of the persons very instrumental in bringing Rod Bogorovich home, because I think the time was too much for the crime that he did. Again, this is Ziff Sistrunk with a major announcement that I will be a candidate for the city of Chicago, the mayor of the city of Chicago. Now, not being naive or not being ignorant about the fact that ex-felons cannot run here in the city, that is the reason I must run. So we can challenge that rule, and we can challenge it in court, and we can challenge it all the way to the mayor's office. I want to thank you. I am very serious. You can reach me at 217. The campaign number is 217-600-1846. I thank all of you all. I hope that I keep going back to my mom, because I live to, and she's been gone for over 30 years, I live to keep her impressed with what I do every day. And on this day, I really think and I really hope that my mom was proud of me as I campaign across this city on the rails. I intend to keep my campaign on the CTA, the Green Line, the Orange Line, the Red Line, because a million people ride those trains. So that's where you'll be seeing me. I look forward to seeing you. I don't know if I'll continue on this broadcast because I don't know if they'll allow candidates to be on here and to push their candidacy. As my mom said, if a task, running for mayor, once begun, never leave it till it's done. Bit the label, big or small, do it well or not at all. This has been Ziff Sistrunk with announcing that I'm a candidate for mayor of the city of Chicago. I thank you and good night.